Does God exist? This has been always the question in my mind ever since I was a child. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Atienza. And for the next few minutes, we're going to discuss if God really exists, if God should be spelled G-O-D or D-O-G. Yes, some people consider God as a dog, even lower than a dog. This question is answerable by a yes or no. But the problem with this is, if we're asked if our belief about God is answerable by a yes or no, how are we going to defend it? So without further ado, let's discuss about some people who believe and who do not believe in God. First is the famous saying by a famous person named René Descartes, "Dubito ergo cogito, cogito ergo sum," which means I doubt, therefore I think, therefore I am. Using the method of doubt or skepticism, René Descartes proved God. By doing so, René Descartes doubted his existence. By that, he asked himself, who caused my existence? By using the process of elimination, he found out who is the real cause of his existence. He asked himself first, am I the cause of my existence? He said no, because if that's the case, life would be too subjective. Let's put it in a more modern way. If I'm the cause of my existence, then I should have Brad Pitt's look, David Beckham's body, and Bill Gates' money. But that's not the case. Because for Descartes, God is the cause of his existence. Even his parents are not the cause of his existence. Why? Because if that's the case, we will fall into this infinite regress that a series of questions will come into play. If my parents caused my existence, then who caused my parents' existence? There are my grandparents. And then who caused my grandparents' existence? Those are my great-grandparents. And then the question lives on. And then the infinite regress will come into play, and then there's no answer. That's why for René Descartes, using his rationalistic proofs, he used God as the main cause of his existence. Next, let's look at from a saint's point of view. And that saint is Saint Thomas Aquinas. Saint Thomas Aquinas used 5 ways in proving God's existence. But we won't go into those 5 ways. Let's just look at the last 2. The fourth one of those five ways of proving God is the argument of gradation, meaning if there's good, there's better, and there's best. And if animals are good, then man is better, and then God is the best. To make it more simple, if there's FEU, there's UP, there's Ateneo, then of course, there's LaSalle. We are the gods. And next is the argument of design. God created everything, just like what the Bible said. And then all the orderliness in the world is due to God. That's why we can say that the man created mountains or whatever in this world, because for St. Thomas Aquinas, it's all about God. However, there are some people who do not consider God as God. Just what I said a while ago, they consider God as a dog.
As a what?
As a dog. Let's look first to the empirical point of view. Empiricism. Empiricism can be stated easily or in an easier way by saying what we see, what we smell, what we taste, what we hear, and what we feel, those are reality. It means that if we can see God, if we can hear God, if we can taste God, if we can touch God, or if we can smell God, therefore He doesn't exist. A very consistent philosopher about this is David Hume. David Hume will say to you that the idea of God is bogus. God is not real. God is just a product of our ideas. But just like opposite to what Descartes said, David Hume said that God came from our ideas. But for David Hume, idea is meaningless because the true reality came from our sensory perceptions. Those are the empirical point of views. Meaning, then why is God still existing for us people? Because for David Hume, God exists because the people want to neutralize fear. Meaning, if I fear something, I want God to relieve that fear. Therefore, for David Hume, we can conclude that God is just a projection of the mind. It is created by our mind. It is also created by our society. Society dictates who our God is. Just like what she said, if you are smoking, therefore your God is a smoking God. If you drink, therefore your God is an alcoholic drug. For men, they could consider Megan Fox as their God, and that perspective was developed more by an atheist named Ludwig Feuerbach. For him, God really does not exist. God is really a projection of the mind. God is just a product of man's attributes, a summation of our attributes. Meaning, if God is all good, all-knowing, all-wise, and everything, it is because of our mind. Because we create something that we want to inspire ourselves to be perfect. We describe God as perfection because we want to be perfect. If not perfect, something that is near perfection. And for that, I provide a simple image for Ludwig Feuerbach's perspective. When you see this picture, what do you see? For some, they will say that it's Jesus Christ. But for Ludwig Feuerbach, he could say that it's only an old man with a long mustache and beard and a long hair. So there's no sense. But for Christians, we will say that this is Jesus Christ. For me, I look at him as Jesus Christ because I'm a Catholic, I'm a Christian. So with that, some people will say that this is God. But for Ludwig Feuerbach, this is just a product of social construction, meaning people around us provide who our God is. The development of our idea of God depends on the development of society. Way back then, we believed that God lives in the Anito. The Greek gods was believed as gods by the Greeks. And now we believe Jesus Christ is our God. But for some, Allah is their God, for the Muslims, for example. And then, the idea of God is very subjective. It depends on the interpretation of the people. And just like what I've said, I've said a while ago, since this idea is very subjective, therefore, God doesn't have His own attributes that we can attribute to. Meaning, if the man's attributes does not exist, therefore, God does not exist. That's for the perspective of Ludwig Feuerbach. And since he is an atheist, he provides us a better understanding. For him, as we praise God, we are enslaved by God because we are giving into Him ourselves. We can't live life to the fullest because we are praising God, because we know that there's someone that is better than us. When in fact, man created God and God did not create man. That's from an atheist point of view. But for me, after all this knowledge I gained, I still believe that there is a God, but that God for me is very subjective. And with that, I want to leave you with this passage. God did not come here for us to love Him or believe in Him. Rather, for us to realize that we are worth loving and worth trusting. The idea of God, for me, solely depends on one being. And that being, for me, is God. I don't care how rich you are, how handsome you are, or how knowledgeable you are. Because only God can prove who is God. And with that, I want to leave you with this question. How can you live life if you still believe in God? Or if you believe in God, how can you live life the way you want it to, and at the same time, the way you want it to? So, that question is again, depends on this question. Do you still believe that God exists? With that, thank you.